Hello there. As you can tell, I am calm, I am tranquil, I am wearing light pink. It's been a while since you guys have seen me this calm and this tranquil. What could be the reason? Well, it's because these videos that I'm about to show you were filmed 2 months ago in what may have been one of the most stressful times in my entire life because everything was going wrong with the house. Now, I filmed these in the moment and I said, you know what, let me wait till things start to work out before I publish them, because having everything on social media in real time would have just compounded the stress and I couldn't deal with any more stress at that point. So in these 2 videos, I'm going to tell you guys all about my disadventures with trying to get a mortgage in Italy. And yeah, as you guys may have known, I won a house at auction on the 26th of February 2020. On the 25th of February 2021, that mortgage, well, not that mortgage, because in the end we had to completely start over from scratch, was approved. But in between this year, a lot of things went wrong. I'd say that everything that possibly could go wrong did go wrong in that process. And so this is the summary of that. In the end, we did end up getting pre-approved for the mortgage, as I said, on the 25th of February, which was a couple weeks ago. So things seem to be back on track and going right. But yeah, I promised you guys an update. So this is that update. It's broken into 2 pieces. First, all the problems, and then the second part will be, you know, the supposed solution for the problems. And as you guys can see, how it all ended up working out. So with no further ado, I'll get right into the video of everything that went wrong, and maybe you guys can see the stress on my face. And then, yeah, ci risentiamo, we'll rehear from each other in part 2. Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. New year, new background. I was getting a bit bored of the hallway situation. I feel like this setup is a bit more cozy and personal, and you know, I'm going to get pretty personal in this video because, as the title says, this is my house update and why after almost 11 months, I'm still exactly where I left off in February when I won the house last year. Exact same place. So much has gone on, and it was really important for me to make this video and update you guys because I feel like people don't understand that when you buy a house, it's pretty much guaranteed that something is gonna go wrong, maybe multiple things. And in my case, things just so happen to be going wrong at the very beginning, which isn't the best sign in the world, but hey, that's life. I think that buying a house is a beautiful thing. It's a great accomplishment, but you know, you should be aware of all the different things that could go wrong. And so this is my experience in buying a house in Italy at auction during. I'm gonna break this video into 2 parts because it's pretty long. A lot has happened and it's a lot. So, you know, grab your tea, get comfortable. Here's part 1. So let's just pick up where we last left off. I had approached banks, multiple banks, to get a gist of my credit worthiness for the mortgage, and every bank told me that I was a solid candidate for the mortgage. After that, I went to the auction and I won the house, really unexpectedly. So at that point, I decided to apply for a mortgage through the mortgage broker that worked within the auction agency I used to win the house. Everything went so smoothly on the auction side, I was sure that going with the broker would be a faster and more effective way to get the mortgage. This is because the job of the mortgage broker is to know all the various banks in the area, their different prerequisites, and then which bank would be the most likely to accept your case. Back in March, the broker, said that I'd have no problem getting a mortgage based on my financial situation and that the whole thing would take max a month. Literally a week after I submitted the documents to her, as you all know, it happened and we went into our first full lockdown. What this meant was that no one could leave their homes, including for work that was deemed unnecessary. This was different from the following lockdowns because all non-essential work was stopped, and at least for me, that meant that the specialist couldn't get into the house to do the appraisal for the mortgage. So my broker told me that we were delayed on 2 fronts because due to the appraisal issue and also the fact that they were completely overwhelmed with loan requests because of the lockdown, banks wouldn't be able to pick my application back up until like July. On the other hand, courts wouldn't be resuming their activities until October. Since I won the house at auction, I kind of needed both of these institutions to be working correctly because say in July I decide to give the mortgage another try and I get approved in August. If the courts weren't operating, I would have no protection in the case that the current occupant didn't want to leave, and I could risk paying the mortgage and the rent on this house and not even be able to get into the house for a much longer period than expected. So with all this said, the broker advised me to wait until October, November-ish to pick the application back up. In the end, I told the broker and also the auction agent that at that point I would just wait to pay in January because I wanted to reduce the amount of backed condo fees that I would have to pay. Literally everyone, all of the professionals involved told me that this was a great strategy and the right thing to do. Remember this because it will be relevant later. So the months go by, and after 4 to 5 really scary months of basically not making any money on my digital platforms and having my income cut in half at a time when I was supposed to be asking the bank for a giant loan for a debt that I just won, I luckily pivoted my content and started making money again. So by the time the summer was over, I had more or less recouped my losses and I was in a pretty good financial situation. So I was ready to get this thing started and done. At the end of September, I went back to the house with my interior designer friend and a possible architect to get the measurements of the house for the renovations. Basically, I really wanted to get a head start on everything so that once the money did get approved and I paid for the house, it would just be a matter of carrying everything out. While I was at the house, I did get some useful information though. First of all, the lawyer that's in charge of the case and managing the house told me that the price that I won the house for actually clears all of the owner's debts. This was awesome because it meant that for once, the system actually worked the way that it was supposed to. And so 1, the bank was getting all of their money back. 2, the former owner was walking away from the situation debt-free with a clean slate. And 3, I was getting an apartment that I could afford. This was also good news because it meant that the former owner would be less likely to cause problems. And in fact, he was being super cooperative throughout the whole process. He even gave the lawyer a copy of the keys to the house and said that whenever I needed access to it, I could have access to it. And in fact, there we were, taking the measurements. So everything was going according to plan in September, and the owner was showing that he was willing and ready to leave the house and that this would all be a smooth transition. This made me feel really good, and I felt even more confident by the time we were done. Fast forward to mid-October, I gave the broker the green light to reactivate or restart my application. And I send her my updated documents and I wait. Totally ready for this to be a walk in the park by now. I mean, I have the money. All the banks sound credit worthy. It is over. Everything is supposed to go great. A week, maybe 2 go by, I hear nothing back, and then we go into lockdown again. So fearing another months-long delay, I asked the broker what's going on and what to expect. Note, she didn't reach out to me. I had to reach out to her. Basically, she said that yes, we were in the same situation as the first lockdown, and once again, my appraisal couldn't be done. I was beyond annoyed by this, but what could be said? It wasn't until talking about the situation with another friend who works in the banking sector that it was suggested to me to call the lawyer directly and see if there was really no way for the appraisal to be done. I mean, the owner had been so accommodating up until now, I found it hard to believe that we couldn't work something out. Outside of services like restaurants and stores, people could still work in this lockdown. So he really just had to let the technician in to do the appraisal and we could get this all done. So I called the lawyer and what do you know? He said there was no problem with the appraisal. He had a copy of the keys and all we had to do was call him and make arrangements. This was the first time I got really irritated with the broker because she could have also made that call. By this time, we're at mid-November, so a month had been wasted, and I had to call you for an update and then do the research to realize that there was no reason to have wasted that month. Plus, I'm supposed to pay you after all of this. She claimed she had no idea that the lawyer had a copy of the keys and she would now get moving on my mortgage in mid-November. I asked her if she could please hurry up because I was trying to pay by January to minimize the condo fees that would be due, as I already said a million times and had been saying all of these months to all of these people. That's when she informed me that I should double check on that because the year that those fees refer to is rarely the actual January to December calendar year. Despite the fact that all these people work in the exact same agency, I now had to go from the mortgage broker to the auction agent who had to then ask the lawyer what the condo's administrative calendar year was. This took at least another day, so more time wasted to find out that the calendar year wasn't January to December, but May to April. And so the fact that I had done all that extra waiting to pay in January made zero difference, and I would still end up paying almost 2 years worth of condos fees. This is info that should have been given to me in March, and I don't know why. Up until then, all these people I was paying to consult me were consulting me on partial information. At this point, I'm getting tired. I just want everything to be done as soon as possible. So I say whatever to the broker and I tell her just to get the money so I can pay for the house. She says, okay. 2 more weeks go by. We're at early December now. And again, I hear nothing from my broker and I have to contact her asking for updates. Mind you, sometimes this lady doesn't even respond for days. At this point, she finally responds and she tells me that the actual bank worker handling my case has and he's basically been ghosting her since November. What am I even supposed to say to that? I couldn't say anything. So it's at this point that I start to look for outside information because in my gut, something is telling me like something isn't right. That's also really weird that one person calls out sick and then the whole thing stops. I mean, we're talking about a big bank in Italy. None of it was making sense. It just so happens that Enrico's aunt works at the same bank I was applying at, and even though I'm applying in Milan and she works in Marche, she would still be able to look at the computer and see at what point my application was. So I give her all the details and she says she'll check. She comes back to me and says my application wasn't even in the system. And basically, at that point, in December, mind you, my deadline, luckily, when the courts stopped, they also pushed back the deadlines to pay for the houses. Originally, remember, I said I had to pay by June, and if I didn't pay by June, I was going to lose my deposit and I was going to lose the house. So they pushed that original June deadline to February 15th. And it was the first week of December when I found out that the mortgage application that takes a month to process at least had not even been started. December, that December with Christmas and New Year's and COVID and my mortgage application hadn't even been started. I was devastated, shocked, angry, pissed. So many emotions. And this is where I'm going to end part 1 and come back to you guys with a part 2 on how this situation developed and how we're resolving it. So comment down below what you think of this situation. I don't know. It is what it is, but yeah, I decided to break this up into 2 videos so that I could say everything con calma without overloading you guys with information because it is a lot of information. It is a lot of technicalities and terms and jargon, but since I brought you guys into the auction journey back when I actually won the house, I thought it was only fair to update you guys on how it's going, given that quite a few people seemed pretty interested in buying a house at auction after that video. I want you guys to have the full story. So I'm gonna come back to you guys with part 2 next week probably. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Mwah.